Alright, I guess it's time to hop into this. Let me swap this over to this. Alright. How is the music volume, by the way? I don't want it to be too loud. Very true. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me, right? It has been a few minutes since I've streamed. Okay, let me turn it down just a little bit. Alright. So, the first thing I want to go over... I hear myself somewhere. Okay. First thing I want to go over is the Discord. So, the last time that I streamed, the Discord didn't exist. It does exist now. You can find a link to that in the description of the YouTube stream. You can join it. We have a bunch of friendly people here who try to help out. And we all kind of just have a good time. Alongside that is the first sort of project announcement, which is that the people in the Discord have decided that they want to do a server game project. So we have this channel here where everyone's kind of talking about coming up with ideas. And if you go into the pinned messages, whether you want to work on the game or not, whether you think there's a game idea that people would be interested in working on, there is a form here that you can submit the ideas to. I think they're thinking about closing that later tonight, but it's kind of open for anyone to work on it within reason. Yeah, there was a Dr. Pepper in the general chat. But, yeah, so if you feel like that's something you want to work on, I think we're kind of open to having pretty much anyone work on it. Whether you're just doing coding, whether you're doing art, whether you just want to do design or testing or whatever, it's kind of open to everyone. So if you want to get your ideas in, I would suggest that now. But aside from that, what is this? Okay. Aside from that, I have a project that I'm going to start on stream, which is what the title is, which is this. Sorry, let me pull a chat on the other monitor. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I put out a poll asking what people would be interested in seeing. And it seems like the #1 thing is making a game on stream. So that's something I'm going to start. And I plan to have it take about... Sorry, there's a missing link here. I plan to have it take about 1 to 2 months on stream. The plan right now is to stream on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So I'll kind of work on that on stream, show off things to chat. If anyone has questions, if anyone wants to know sort of another part of Godot, that's kind of what that's for. So we have 3 game ideas. Sorry, let's first go to this. We are a little bit disorganized around here. So the game kind of has 3 requirements, which is what I want to go through. So the first requirement is that I want to do something that is worth learning. So I don't want to make a super simple game, something like Pong. You're not really going to learn anything from that. I want to do something that kind of shows off more advanced parts of Godot, more advanced code. So some examples would be an inventory system, maybe some enemy AI pathfinding, or some heavy systems. Second requirement is that I would want this to take around 1 to 2 months of streams. Stuff like art and music, I don't really want to do on stream, but I might. But it's mainly going to be focused on doing the code on stream or setting it up in Godot on stream. And then make a video about it. I might make a video about it. I'm not sure. One thing that kind of comes from this is it'll kind of show me what people don't understand about Godot. So I can see, like, whenever I'm working on something, if people are like, hey, why are you doing this? Or what does this do? It'll kind of like gauge that people don't understand that part of Godot, and that's something that I might want to make a video on. I don't know if I would make a video on the full game. But the third requirement is that there's something in the game that I personally don't have a lot of experience with. So something like pathfinding is something I've never done in Godot, and I would want to do something that I can learn about. So that way, whenever I'm learning it, people can see how I'm learning and can kind of see how you would go about figuring out these problems. So that's true, JW. Your art and music is really good. So I came up with kind of 3 game ideas that kind of meet these criteria. And I kind of want to open it up to you guys to figure out like which one people would be most interested in seeing. So I'm not going to start work on them today. We're going to kind of go through the ideas, and I'm going to have people vote on it in the Discord and see what they want. If none of these ideas sound good, if you guys all think these ideas are terrible, then we can go through and make a 4th game idea. So the first game idea is the simple like Vampire Survivors game. You all know the type. You all know what it is. So this game will have animations. This will have upgrades. We'll have to work on spawning enemies. We'll have to work on enemy AI. We'll have to work on the different weapons. So like maybe one character has a shotgun, maybe one character just has a pistol, maybe a character has a bow, and then like have different automatic weapons. So in Vampire Survivors, you'll have like the holy water. The holy water kind of just like falls down. That's automatic versus like in 20 Minutes Till Dawn, you have to shoot your own weapon. So that's sort of like the basic game. And I think that I could do this within 1 to 2 months of streams. The second game idea, because I think people like this, but I think this might be a little too boring for people, is a fishing game. So 2D or 3D? 2D, because I don't know 3D. And I think doing 3D on stream would be stupid for me because I don't have any confidence in 3D. But the second game is a fishing game where you go up, you catch fish, you sell them to merchants. You can use that to upgrade. Maybe there's new areas that you can go to. It's kind of like just the fishing part of Stardew Valley. Or if you know any sort of like mining games where you go down, you mine blocks, you get ore, and then you sell it to merchants so you can get like a better pickaxe. Kind of like that, but for fishing. So inside of this, we'll have a regular game where you can walk around. And then whenever you go to fish, there will be a mini game inside of that. So it's kind of like stopping the game to do a mini game. There will also be a day-night cycle. There will be an inventory system. So like we have to worry about items, maybe upgrading your fishing rods, and maybe switching the player between different areas. And the third game is an old school roguelike. This will not be a very complex roguelike, but if you're familiar with Caves of Cud, Adam, Rogue, or anything like that, sort of like Dwarf Fortress, it will be like that, but very, very simple. I'm not looking to make the next Dwarf Fortress, but I feel like something like this would be really cool to cover because it's going to be very code heavy. So it will have very, very heavy systems. So like maybe factions and reputation. You'll have to worry about items in your inventory. The movement will be grid-based. You'll have different areas that you'll load, and then the enemies will have some sort of complex-ish AI. Sorry, I just wanted to check a notification. Oh, hey, Ramuski. How's it going? So those are the 3 game ideas that I came up with. And I wanted to open up a poll. 2D sprite work is a lot of work if you plan any crazy animations or tile sets. I do not. My art skills are so unbelievably bad that I don't think I want to do that. So I would kind of keep it simple for all 3 of these games. But I wanted to open up a poll in the Discord, and I will probably do that after stream to see which of these 3 games people would be most interested in. And if none of these are interested, like if people don't feel like these are interesting enough, then maybe we can talk about it in the Discord. I don't know, but that was kind of the idea. Tabby, shut up. But yeah, so those were the game ideas. Those were kind of the main project that I wanted to open up because it's like from September to the end of October was kind of the time frame that I wanted to work on this on. Let's see, what was the other thing that I wanted to go through? The last thing that I wanted to mention before doing any sort of work on stream is this person. So there's someone in the Discord. This is just a learning resource that I wanted to show off. Her name is Alice, or Miss Cthulhu, or sorry, not Miss Cthulhu, Miss Articulate Python. She made a really cool blog with a bunch of useful information about Godot. I think a lot of people that watch me would be very interested in this stuff. It's like very, very crazy stuff, like adding metadata to components in Godot and doing all of these crazy components that call their own functions inside of the parent. Just a bunch of crazy shit. I would highly recommend checking them out. Go ahead and post that in chat just in case anyone's interested in it. Do I use states when building player movement stuff? I do not. For player movement, I feel like I can actually show off. Let me open up a project really quickly. And I can kind of show how I do player movement. I think like state machines and things like that are really, really handy for enemies or like AI where you're not in control of it and it's kind of just doing its own thing. Whereas if there's like player input, I feel like it's easier to just make the script. Let me find the player code. So here's kind of what this looks like. So this is not a super, this isn't a well-written player controller, I would say. Like there's some to-dos, there's some whatever stuff. But typically what I'll do is I'll separate them out into like different functions that are called instead of different states. So like, for example, where is handle aerial shown? This is a 2D platform, by the way. So for example, if you're not on the floor, then we call the handle aerial code. We call handle jump, handle horizontal movement, update the player's velocity, things like that. Instead of separating them out into like an aerial state and a grounded state, because typically a lot of your code will be shared between the states, it's kind of just easier to kind of separate them into functions and call them when you need to. I'll show really quickly what the movement in this is. It's not super advanced. It is... YouTube is pretty delayed from the Twitch stream. I didn't know that. Is there like a low latency option on YouTube? I don't know why that would be a thing. But the movement in this is just like a simple platformer. So you can see like I can move on the ground. The movement is the same as in the air, minus like the gravity stuff, which is what handle aerial does. So handle aerial just like handles gravity and whether or not you're holding space, whether or not you're letting go of space and like just plummeting to the ground. So it's just easier that way. I think a lot of people tend to not use state machines, like CodeCuber said on Twitch. A lot of people just don't use state machines for the player movement. State machines are much more for something like autonomous, I would say. Like an enemy that's just like walking back and forth, you would want to use a state machine for that. If it gets more complex, you would probably start looking at like a behavior tree, but I'm not super well versed in behavior trees, so I don't know. But yeah, I would say typically don't use a state machine for players. Let me see really quickly if there is a option on YouTube. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I might just do that off stream. There's some delay on YouTube. I'll check it, but yeah, sorry about that. For simple enemies, sometimes it's not worth it. That's true, yes. Yeah, no, for simple enemies, like if the enemy is like just chasing you, you don't really want to do a state machine for that unless it's like walking back and forth between an area. Then you see the player and then it starts chasing and you kind of want to like keep people, yeah, like stuff like that. You would use a state machine, but otherwise you can just do the one script. I've made the mistake of using a state machine for movement and eventually it got too unwieldy. Yes, absolutely. There is one thing that I would say is it can get really unwieldy as well if you're doing something like a 3D platformer. Like if you think like Super Mario 64 or A Hat in Time, it would be really unwieldy to kind of keep track of all the functions that you call. And so something similar that I've seen is actually using a state machine, but having all of the scripts, I think it was on the player. So like the aerial state would call the like handle aerial and handle horizontal movement. Instead of the state containing the entire logic, it would kind of defer function calls to the parent. Which is, I think, a better way of doing it for the player. Sorry, let me read chat really quickly. Yes, writing everything in one script does get really tiring. Like this script is probably the longest script in the game. And it's terrible. It is terrible to read, like even at this length. I kind of wish that I separated some of this out, but this was for a game jam, so I'll give it like a pass. When did I start learning how to code and how is math important? I'll answer your second question first. Math isn't super important. So for example, let me find where I do like a global position. So this is the most math that you're going to be doing. You don't specifically need to do the math yourself. It's just kind of knowing what math needs to be called. So like here, I'm not manually adding together two vectors. I'm telling the engine, hey, I want to add these two things together. And the game kind of handles it for you. So it's important, but you don't need to know specifically what it's doing. It would be nice to know. But if math is one of the things that's holding you up, you don't need specifically to know everything. Can you call a function from another file? Yes, you can. There are a bunch of different things that you can do. So coming from React, I'm trying to think about how React works because it's been a couple years since I did React. So Godot doesn't have the idea of private functions. So anything, actually, this is a perfect way to show it. Let me go to the player file. Player.txt then. So this is the player. Her name is Lily, and she is a kinematic body 2D, or I think it's a player body 2D. I'm not sure what it's called anymore. But she doesn't actually call her own movement code. It's character body 2D. Sorry, I always call it kinematic body 2D because I used Godot 3 for so long. But we have this component that handles the movement for it, and then we'll just call player.moveInSlide. So we have a reference to the player, which is assigned as getOwner. So it grabs the player and stores a reference to it, and then can call any function on it it wants. So for example, if I were to add a function in here called print debug print the player, then inside of the player movement, anytime I want to, I can just call player.print debug. And it says I'm the player every physics frame. So you can kind of just call whatever function you want, which is, it's a blessing and a curse in Godot, because it would be nice kind of to have private functions that you don't want other things to call, but it's also really nice because it gives you so many ways to hook things up. But yes, so you can call any function from any file, as long as you have a reference to the object. Geometry is more important than maths. Yes, if just knowing the geometry, like the concepts, is really, really important, but you don't need to know everything. I was wondering if maybe a cleaner way to code the player would be able to build him out of player behavior components, introducing both flexibility and readability at little cost of performance potentially. Jump component, walk component, crouch climb. So you're saying, like, your thoughts are, instead of having this player movement script, kind of just building it, like, if you wanted a player to be able to jump, you would introduce like a jump component. And then if you wanted the player to be able to run, you would add like a run component. That's definitely a way you could do it. One thing that's a little bit iffy on that is this is kind of separating it a little bit too much, I would say. Unless you're going to have a bunch of different players that at some point you're going to want to turn off these components or construct them differently. Because usually you only have one player controller type. If it is something where you wanted to add functionality at runtime, you could totally do that. But I would say, like, this isn't something I would reach for immediately. It's not bad, but, like, if I'm writing this player and I know that this player is going to have one control method, I wouldn't build it out of different functions, or no, sorry, different nodes. I would kind of just have the one thing and then maybe put functions in here. You could build it out of components. I don't know. I would have to think on that more. I really would. Because there are a couple ways you could do it where you could have... let me just do this really quickly. This isn't going to last, but... I kind of wanted to do this. So what you could do is you could have this self-contained node that handles like the input. I think I have a player input class in this project. Get input or something. I don't know. We'll just do this. Jump. So we could do this just for brevity's sake. I don't care about code cleanness. So you could have a function that's self-contained like this, where the second you remove it, all of the functionality disappears. You could also do it so that you have like a jump function in here. And then outside in, say, the player movement script, you could reference that jump component here. But I don't know. Because both of those are valid. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to play around with that because that's definitely like a different way of doing things. But one thing that I would one thing I would keep in mind is like, how much does it make sense to separate things? Because you don't want to separate too much, because then you're looking at your player input and you're like, okay, well, I want to see the jump code. And so you have to go to your jump component, and then your jump component references like some other like aerial component. And so you have to go inside of that. And so it's kind of like you have to track things down across multiple files rather than tracking things down across multiple functions. It's definitely a possibility. It's definitely not inherently a bad thing, but personally, I would not reach for this. You totally can, and you can totally get away with it. And if it makes sense in your brain, then that's what matters the most, I would say. In case you want to remove some functionality. Yes, so I would agree with that. I think maybe the thing I'm hung up on is like thinking about it as a jump component. If I'm thinking about it as like a change to the player that's more complex than jumping, because it's like, you know, the player is going to jump always. Yeah, I would say so. If it's something like you're playing a Metroidvania and the player gains the ability to wall climb, then yes, I think a self-contained component of wall climbing would work. But you would still have to make some changes in the regular player controller to kind of keep it from like... Hold on, give me a second. I'm thinking about how this would work, because I haven't made a Metroidvania in Godot or ever, but... Okay, yes. Sorry, I was thinking about it now. Yes, I think if it was something like giving the player the ability to climb after they unlock an ability, I think adding a component to the player or something like that would work. I think what you could do is like have a movement controller, and whenever the player uses this ability, whenever it becomes available, it kind of takes over. Yes, you can control the parent node from child nodes. But I think like if I entered the point where I would like wall climb, this would kind of like take over and just be like, hey, I'm controlling the player right now, and this would stop controlling the player until this gives up control again. Something like that. I think there's a tool in Godot for making Metroidvanias. Like a plugin? I have a big sin that I don't do. I literally never check the asset lib. I don't think I've ever used the plugin in Godot, and that's something that I would love to do more of, because I hear there's so many amazing plugins like Dialogic, like I think someone was mentioning a Kanban board for Godot. There's just a bunch of add-ons that I think is really cool that I don't use. Let me catch up on this. Is Git owner the same as Git parent? So Git owner is I would call it a safer version of Git parent. So for example, in the player movement code, I call Git owner, and right now Git parent would get the exact same thing. So right now these codes are the same, but if I were to add like a node for like organization, and I like dropped components in here, this code would break at this point, because instead of grabbing the player, we're now grabbing directly the parent. But Git owner reaches for the top level node of the scene. So this is set at editor time and is not set at like runtime. So no matter where this is in the scene, it will always reach for the top level node of the scene. So like whenever we take the player and we put them into a level, it doesn't reach out of the scene. It will always grab the player. So I would say Git owner is like a safer version of Git parent, because you kind of always know what it's going to reach for. So that's what I would use. That's the difference, and that's why I usually prefer it. Git parent just feels a little bit messy sometimes. There are definitely times you want to use it, but like I would say if you can use Git owner, then that gives you more consistent results. Call down, signal up is important or not really? It's very nuanced, but I would say in general, if you're doing call down. Yeah, if you're doing call down, signal up, it tends to lead to cleaner code. Typically. There are times that you don't always do that. Like, for example, here, I'm using this where I'm calling specifically a parent method. So instead of doing a signal, which I could do, like, I could make a signal and call, like, movement ready.emit or whatever it is. And then the player could listen to that and call its own movement slide or something like that. It doesn't really... This doesn't break anything. So it's like, even though we're not call down, signal up always, it's kind of just, it tends to lead to cleaner code. Sorry, I'm reading chat. Oh, CodeKeeper, you didn't know that Git owner was a function? I love this function. I think I probably use this probably more than Git parent. So yeah, I've used it 12 times in this project, and I've used Git parent 2 single times. This one could probably be... What is this? I don't know what this is. But yeah, I use Git owner all the time. Git parent is very much like a... It's usually used as like a band-aid thing for me. If I can use Git owner, I will use Git owner. Can you use match for... What are you using match for? And make a condition if the component exists, then switch to that component. So maybe one thing that kind of leads to is like if, for example, I add a new component, I would have to go in and touch this code. What you could instead do is have a variable in here. I actually have one. I just don't use it. Yeah, I was actually doing this before where you would kind of have a controller and you kind of specify what it is. So if controller dot like process. This is kind of like a state actually. So I don't know. That's kind of like a state in a way where you're kind of swapping out components, but you don't know that they exist. I don't know. That's actually like a really weird one because I'm like, at this point, it's like, what's the difference between this and a state? You know? Like if I were to do physics process, and I were to say like if input dot is action dot pressed, move jump, get owner dot controller equals self. I don't know. That's kind of just a state. Maybe, yeah, maybe doing a match would be different for it. But the idea is that it would kind of slot itself into the player, and the player would start using that as the controller instead of like the overall player movement. But that is kind of just a state in a weird way. It's just less defined. Anyways, speaking of states, who here knows anything about animation trees? Because I don't think animation trees are used enough. And I've kind of been playing around with them. And I would like to kind of show off what they do. So, I was thinking of it like states. If one component exists, then add it to the player's utility belt. Yeah, it's like a weird state pattern. It's like less of a state machine and more of like a state list. Because like one of the things with state machines is you get kind of like a defined like transition between two states. Whereas for like this state list, it's like any state can transition to any state whenever, you know, their criteria becomes true. So I just wanted to show this off a little bit because I've been working on this one. So if you've ever done animations in 2D, you have probably done something like this, where we get the velocity, check the last facing direction, and assign like a right, left, down, up string, and then we add it together based on like, if the player's moving, we use run. If they're not, we use idle. If they're attacking, we use attack. And then inside of the player, it kind of means that we have to have these animations named in very specific ways, which you want to have your animations named in like typical ways, but like you have to have them named exactly this or else it doesn't work. So what animation trees do instead, I just wanted to go over this really quickly. I might make a video on this because I don't think they're used nearly enough. What kind of game is this? This project is just a... Oh shit, hold on. Let me disable the tree so that we can get this. Sorry, yeah. So this game project thing is just like a 4-direction movement, and you have an idle animation for up, right, left, and down. Idle animation is 1 frame, but whatever. And then whenever you attack, you have an attack animation. So that is what this is doing right now. So that's fine. Animation trees won't completely remove your ability or your need to code, but it will add... Did I make the art? No, I do. Pixel Boy. Pixel Boy on itch. Actually, let me show this off again. Sorry. There's so many things. I'm jumping between topics. This is one of the best art packs I've ever found because it is so amazing. Let me find it. Is it this one? No. This one. Okay. So this is an art pack that I found by Pixel Boy on Itch. It's called the Mega Enemies Collection. It is here. I'll actually put this in chat as well. It is a free pack. Right? Is it a free pack? No, it is a mega asset pack. Sorry. Is this the one that I'm talking about? This is not the one that I'm talking about. Sorry, hold on. Where is it? Hold on. Hold on. This is the pack. Found it. So this pack is a free asset pack that you, I believe, yeah, CC0, which means you can distribute them inside of your game. You can use it. If you do use it, probably give credit. You don't technically have to, but you should. This is a free asset pack, and inside of this asset pack is a bunch of character sprites. So let me find characters. So here is the list of character sprites, and every single one of them has their own, you're not gonna be able to see it great. It has its own up, down, left, and right walk animation, its own attack animation, and there's like whatever this animation is supposed to be. And inside of this is like a fuck ton of characters. Like every single one of these has their own sprite sheet, their own facial, like portrait thing. And that's not even all of them, because there are also enemies. So each one of these has their own walk animations. And I also think that the art is like just really cute. It also has some boss animations. This guy has his own animations. All of these are free. They're free. You can download them. You can use them in commercial games, non-commercial games. You can do it without credit. It comes with animated background tiles. It comes with... You don't have to give credit. You should. You 100% should. You don't specifically have to, though. But you should. It also comes with tile sets. Or just regular land. For buildings, for floors. I'm not personally a huge fan of these, but, you know, they're good for prototyping, because you can always swap out your own tile sets later. All of this is for free, and I will post a link to that in both chats, because I think this is an amazing resource. It's kind of like a... It's not... I was going to say it's kind of like Kenny. It's not really, but... Like, it feels very similar. Because it's like a... It's just like a passion project, you know? It's free. It's free. Download now. License, CC0. That's it. It's free. 100% free. These are goals for people donating. It's just free. I would highly recommend everyone download this pack just for prototyping. Because it kind of gives you everything. Or you can even use it for a full game. But anyways, back to this. Back to the animation tree thing. Let me double check if anyone is talking about anything in Discord. Oh, okay. So, animation tree. So, instead of doing these manual animations, we can instead set up these things called blend spaces. So I'm going to start a new one really quickly. And here. So an animation blend space is really cool because what you can do is you can set up animations inside of this 2D space. And based on what position you have the cursor at, it will play the animation. So I'm going to go ahead and show this off. I'm going to go ahead and add the... We'll do the run animation first. So run up, run down, run left, and run right. So we can see that whenever I move this cursor, so the player runs up, player runs down, player runs left, and the player runs right. Now by default, the animation trees are set up in such a way that they're good for like 3D animation where you kind of blend between them. That's why it's called a blend space 2D. So this continuous blend will make it so if you're halfway between the animation, is it not going to do it? It does like this weird glitch thing every now and then. Oh yeah, sorry. Which one is this? This is Underachiever. This album that I'm listening to is really nice, but some of the songs do get really loud sometimes. But yeah, you can see that this kind of like glitches a little bit. Every now and then it restarts. So what we can do is we can change this from blend continuous to blend discrete. So it'll just play whichever animation we're closest to. Actually, continuous was a problem. Because you can see I'm down here and it's playing run up. So you don't want to use continuous. So we'll swap to discrete. The main difference between discrete and capture is that if you see whenever I switch between them, it kind of starts on the first frame. Whereas for capture, it'll kind of keep the frame progress. So that's kind of like up to you, whichever one you want to use. But I usually just use discrete. And another thing to look out for is in Godot, Y up is -1 and Y down is +1. But by default, we have these swapped in the animation tree. So we would actually want to swap this really quickly. Catch you later, CodeCuber. You have a good day. So, this is how it would actually work. So when testing, this kind of looks gross, but like whenever we're moving up, it would be set up here. We're moving down, it's here. So I can actually show really quickly. So we will kill the script off this, and I'm going to attach just a new script for now called player tree animation. So how do we control these animations through code? So I'm going to go ahead and export an animation tree. Actually, we won't export it. I'll just drag this in. If you don't know, you can click on the node, drag it in, and then hold control, and it'll just plop it right there. Typically, I would use the export, but I'm just going to use onReady for now. I'm also going to grab a reference to the player. Does the player have a class in this project? It does. Okay. So, how do we use the animation tree? Just using the blend space, we can set this blend position through code. Oh, thank you, Rudolph and Michael. I appreciate it. I'm really happy to hear that like my videos and things help people. I love popping into Twitch streams and just like people being like, dude, I know you. Your videos have helped me. And it's just like, fuck, man. You know, it's nice like just hearing it and like seeing it from people because it's like, I don't know. What was I saying though? Yo, Quellis. Welcome in. Are you going live today? And if so, at what time? But back to this really quickly. So I can grab the velocity here. Velocity equals player. Get, or not get velocity. Player dot velocity. If velocity in last facing direction equals velocity dot normalize. So we're just going boilerplate code on this really quickly. This will be a vector 2. And by default, I'll set it to facing down. So, Rat Race Studio. Rat Race Studio. I don't know if I know that name. I'll check it out. Is it a YouTube or a Twitch stream? I'll pop it up on my other monitor and keep it in mind after the stream. So instead of setting the animation that we're playing manually, yo, Elsevera, dude, I know you. Yo, what up? Let me put a little. Yo, what up? How's the work on Whiskerwood Vale going, by the way? I haven't been able to tune in for a little bit. Yo, Foxen, my boy. How's it going? Just going over a few things in Godot. Just showing off some things to people. One thing that you guys missed was... Oh, where the hell is it? Obsidian. So I'm going to be starting up a project where I'm just going to work on a game during September and October. We have 3 game ideas. A Vampire Survivors like game, a fishing game, kind of like Stardew Valley, but just the fishing part, and a old school roguelike, like Caves of Cud, Adam, Rogue, something like that, but very simple, not like these 3. And I kind of want to make those over September and October. And if anyone wants to kind of vote on these later, I will be making a poll in the Discord, which I will put in Twitch chat. You guys don't have to join it, but if you do want to vote on it, it will be in the Discord after the stream. Yeah, it's good to hear that Whiskerwood Vale's been going sick. I have not checked in lately. What have you guys been adding to it? Is it still just levels or anything gameplay related? But back to animation trees really quickly. So this is separate from the community project on the Discord. Yes. So this is specifically what I'm going to be working on stream. I will probably work on the community project on stream. I will almost certainly be doing that. But this is a separate project that I'm setting for myself. For the animation tree. So I can set this blend position by doing animation tree.set. And I can pass in this parameter. I included the quotes. Just made the big bold decision to go loading screenless. Fly between the levels yourself on the sword. Ooh, that sounds really cool. But we can set this like this, and we can pass in the last facing direction. So instead of trying to set what direction the animation will be going, we'll instead just rely on the animation tree to process that for us. So just like to recap what we're doing here. We grab the last facing direction. So if we're heading up, it would be -1. That would get passed into here, which would set the point down here, and the player would run up. And if we're going left, it would face over here. So if I hit play, this should work, hopefully. So we're facing down, we're facing left, right, and up. Now we don't have an idle animation. Unfortunately, we can't just set that here. We actually will need a second blend space. So how do we do a second blend space? This is where animation state machines come into play. So instead of doing the state ourselves, we can also do this inside of the tree. So I don't want to reset this up. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to file. I'm just going to put this in here. And I'm going to call this player run blend. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to a new animation node state machine. And I can load in the player animation blend space. So this is the blend space that we worked on before. If I click on this, I can see it. And I can go back to root. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to run. And I'm just going to drag a player transition over. So we can add a transition here, drag this over, and just say this works always. I think by default this runs always. So if I hit play on this, I think it should go straight. Yeah, go straight to run. The only thing that we're going to have to change right now to get this to work is the parameter. It's no longer the top level parameter in the tree. And we can see that if we go here, we have parameters, and then we have this section called run. But we can just replace that by dragging in like so. So I can click this, drag it over. And it brought the quotes over again. And if I hit play, so we're working just as we were before. So how do we add the other blend position? So I'll go ahead and go to the tree and create a new blend space 2D. I'll call this idle. This should be really quick to set up. It's just going to be the same thing as the other tree. So I'm going to add idle down up top, idle up, set that to -1, idle left, and idle right. Then set this to discrete. And if I test this, so there's a couple things that we're going to have to do. One way we can test this is by clicking this plus. So this will put us in the idle tree. And then if I step into the idle tree, I can play around with the blend position and just make sure it works, which it does. But how do we go from run to idle? This is where transitions come into play. So if I set up a transition to run and then a transition to idle, these will flip in between each other. Let's kill one of these by clicking on it and deleting. So animation trees have parameters. So inside of this advanced menu, we can set up a condition. So whenever this condition becomes true, it'll swap between them. So I'll just make one called idle. And then I will make a new parameter on this one called run. Excuse me. Then inside of the player script, I can set these variables by doing animation tree dot set. I can pass in the condition. We can see the conditions are here now. Let's actually test this before we go further. So right now we're running. If I turn on idle, we idle. If I turn on run, we're running. So I can set these by dragging in this here. Run, and I just want to set this to true when the velocity isn't 0. So I can say velocity. I think by default this needs to be turned into a boolean, so I can do double exclamation mark. This feels gross, but I'm gonna come back to this later and make a new, like a better approach to it. And then we can set one for idle and just make it whenever the velocity isn't true. So that's almost the last thing that we have to do. The other last thing that we have to do is right now, so I can actually show this off. If I go into the game when we're idle, it doesn't update to the correct idle animation. And that's because the idle tree actually has its own blend space. So we have to set that one manually as well. So we set the idle blend position to the same thing as the run blend position. Now we have that. Yeah, double exclamation mark is insane. But, I mean, you could also do velocity does not equal vector 2.0. That would also work. Then velocity equals vector 2.0. So this still works, if you prefer that. Which I think a lot of people would, but yeah. Coming from, it's weird to do it in Godot, but like working in JavaScript, like this is just valid code that you would see, or like seeing like equals vector 2 or whatever, which I hate, but you know, there are some cool things from JavaScript. I actually kind of like it a little bit, but so now we have this working, which is great. But what would be even greater is if we didn't have to set these conditions ourselves. Is 0 epochs velocity at length squared? You could do that. I would personally just rather do the vector 2.0. But you could totally do the is 0 approx. Usually when you're doing velocity, though, you kind of want it to be at 0. You don't want it to be at like 0.0001. But, okay. So this condition is really annoying because I have to set this. Let's say I want to add like an attack state. I would have to set this up here. Conditions.attack equals like player.attacking. This sucks because it's kind of gross. So we can actually use something a little bit more advanced on the animation tree itself. So the first thing that we need to do is this advanced expression base node. By default, it's set to the animation tree itself, but we can actually click this and assign it to the player. So what this means is that anytime we use what's called expressions, we're targeting the player node. And what we can do is inside of our transition, click that. Instead of using this condition, we can write an expression. So if I want to go from run to idle, I can say velocity equals vector2, 0. And then for idle to run, I can remove this expression and say velocity does not equal vector2, 0. 0. And then I can remove these conditions. And something's wrong. Uh-oh. 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 I messed something up somewhere. What did I mess up? Am I not allowed to use that? Maybe I can just do velocity? Okay, that works, apparently. Okay, that works. Whatever. So instead of specifically checking the velocity in here and setting the parameter there, we can just straight up use the velocity. So if velocity is 0, we can do not velocity, and that will equal true. And if the velocity isn't 0, we can just pass the velocity in, and that will evaluate to true, because there's velocity. So all we have to do is set the blend position, and we can kind of define our expressions here instead of defining them here. So the last one that I wanted to add was an attack class, or not an attack class, an attack animation, because we had that in the other one. So I'll go ahead and add a new blend space 2D. Call this one attack. And I will set up the animations again. So attack down, attack up, attack left, and attack right. Change this to discrete and double check that this works by hitting play on that. Then if I test this, so we attack up, we attack left, right, down. Okay, and then we can do the same thing here. So I'll go ahead and transition from run to attack. This will advance when attack is true on the player. And then we will go to, let's say, idle afterwards when attack is not true. And then we can go from idle to attack whenever it is true. Or sorry, attacking. And I think that should be enough to get this to work. We could also do this where we go to run whenever attacking isn't true and velocity is true. So like this. So we go from attack to idle or attack to run based on the velocity. And then if I hit play, ooh, something's fucked up. What fucked up? Not attacking, not velocity, and velocity. I think I'm just going to remove the run transition and just make us go back to idle? Question mark? Because I think what this should do is this should go from attack to idle and then from idle to run if we're moving. But we shall see. Okay, yeah. So the last thing that we have to do is we have to set the blend position, which sucks. One thing that I wish we had in animation trees is like shared blend positions. Like I wish all 3 of these could be one blend position on the tree, but I don't think that's a thing that we can do currently. Okay. Yep. So we attack left, right, up, and down. And so that works. So that's our code. That's the animation tree. So instead of having this, which is fine, you totally could do it, we can instead just have this, where we set 3 parameters and let the tree handle it. Now, one thing we can also do with trees, this is actually the main reason that I use trees, is we can slow down animations whenever we want. So this isn't the main reason I use trees, but this is a really nice plus feature. So if I go back to the animation tree, instead of this being our top level node, we can actually have a node in between this and the end of the tree. So I'll go ahead and save this one off again. We can save as. So instead of setting this back up, I can save this off to a resource, player, animation, state machine. Then I can set up a new root node. So this one will be animation node blend tree. And the way this one works is it kind of processes the nodes and then outputs an animation at the end. So I can go ahead and load in. So we could actually load in things like our run blend state here, but I'm just going to go ahead and load in the state machine that we just did. We can call this, we'll just call it state machine. Or actually, oh, sorry, I'll call it player state, because that'll make more sense in a second. So this should be functionally the same as what we did before, minus one thing, which is we're going to have to adjust these parameters. So if I go into animation tree, we can see that they now belong to player state, and then there are like subcategories here. So I can go ahead and just copy that over. Or I know what this is going to be. It's going to be parameters / player state. So I can just select all these, player state. So this should be functionally the same as before, which it is. But now what we can do is we can add an arbitrary like control here. So for example, let's say I wanted to slow all of the animations down. I can add a timescale here. Hook in my state machine to the timescale, and then control that timescale in code. So for example, animation tree dot set. I believe this one will just be parameter / timescale. It is not. It is parameter / timescale / scale, because why wouldn't it be? So I can set this to anything. So if I want to just have it be 1, if I play, it looks normal. But if I want it to start going really fast, I can play it 5 times as fast. So you can use that to speed up all of your run animations. If you have like an idle, not an idle, if you have like a walk animation that speeds up as you speed up, you can include that by doing like velocity dot length divided by like your max speed, if you had one. Or you can use that to just slow down an arbitrary animation. So like, let's say I wanted the attack animation to play half as fast. For whatever reason, I can do player.attacking, and I can set like a time scale equal to half. So var time scale, so by default it's 1. And then I can set that up so that whenever we're walking, it's the regular speed. Whenever I attack, it's half as fast. Or I can have it be twice as fast when we're attacking. There's like a weird glitch going on there, and I don't know what that is. Actually, I won't lie. But that's the animation tree, and I just kind of wanted to show that off to people because I don't think enough people use them in 2D games in the slightest. I think most people kind of see these and go, well, this is for 3D games, or this is for something complex. But here we have a dude walking around with 4 direction movement and 4 attack animations. And this already makes it feel like a lot more organized. The only thing I would love is if we had like an animation tree dot like parameters / like player blend, and we could just set it here. And then that would be all the code we need for this. But unfortunately, we don't have that. So you do actually have to copy and paste this code right now. But yeah, so that is animation player. Or sorry, animation tree. And that's why you shouldn't use animated sprites, because you can't use animation tree with animated sprites. see, what other things can I go over while I'm here? I guess, are there any questions that people have about anything that you would want me to go over in Godot? Because I don't really have any plans on working on projects today. Because I kind of wanted to ask people which of these projects they liked the most. Does a platformer advantage from animation tree? I would say so, yeah. I mean, for example, the animation code in this project, which is a platformer, is gross. But you could totally refactor this to check the player velocity. Like, look at this. If player velocity y less than 0, you could totally like check these variables inside of a transition and then transition to jump climb 2 or jump climb. I have a question about 3D projects and what they need, but are you just going to do 2D projects? Oh, that's Lost Stars. Yeah, you can ask about 3D projects. I don't know much about them. I mainly do 2D. You can ask your question and I can see if I can answer it. You don't know how to make UI textured. What do you mean you don't know how to make UI textured? I think I have a textured UI somewhere. Let me pull up my old projects. Oh, actually, I can do it in this one, because this one doesn't have textured UI. So, for example, are you talking about like making like a window like this textured? Because that is as easy as editing your theme. So, for example, what the hell is my theme? HUD layer pause menu? Is there an animation tree like that for 3D? Animation tree is actually built mainly for 3D. It is mainly for 3D. So, for example, your idle state, you would have like, because usually you don't control your animations on like 3 axes at once. It's usually like your run forward animation blends a little bit with your run left animation. So instead of having this be discrete, you could have it continuous, and then you could have these animations be your 3D animations. So animation tree is actually mainly built for 3D, I would say. But it works well for 2D. Back to UI really quickly. So I think I should have a theme in here called main theme. So I would recommend learning about themes. I don't know any videos specifically that are good about themes. But what you can do is, let's say, what is this? Let me find a button really quickly. I think it's just a button. Yeah, so this is a button. So let's say I wanted to give this button a background, or if I wanted to give this panel a background. So this is specifically, it is a panel. It's not going to say the type, is it? Yeah, typed panel. So I can go into the theme, add an override for type panel. That's not what that should have been. This? Yeah, there we go. So if I had added an override for type panel, I can go over here to this style box flat. I can add a new style box flat inside of it and set it to any of these 4 different types. So for example, if I wanted it to be like a green box, I can say style box flat. I can click on it, and then I can change it to green. And then any UI that uses the same theme. So if this should be updating, but apparently it's not. Why is this not updating? Does this override something? Ah, okay, so I actually have an override on this. So you could set it up specifically through here in the overrides. But if I turn that off, you can see that it uses the Omori OST. Dude, I actually haven't played Omori, but this song came up on my Spotify. And I was like, this sounds so fucking good that I had to add it to like my video game playlist. But you can say this, so you can have all of your panels have the same style. Or I can do a texture, so stylebox texture, and then let's say I load like, I don't know if I have any good images on hand for this. I don't think I do. This project doesn't have, yeah, we'll just say that. There we go. So we can load in whatever texture we want. Now you're specifically saying XP bar. XP bars can be as complex as you want or as simple as you want. So typically what you would see for an XP bar, let me make a new scene for this. Hide everything. I'm just going to make a test scene to show off this. So I'm going to go ahead and do right click new scene, type user interface, test control. So typically for an XP bar, you would actually use a progress bar or a texture progress bar. I don't usually use just a regular progress bar, but you can. Or sorry, I usually use a progress bar that is normal, but you can use a textured progress bar. And I really don't have a good display for this. So I'm actually going to use a regular progress bar really quickly. So this progress bar, I will make large and set up a theme override for the styles. So if I have a style box flat and a style box flat, I can set up, which one is this? This is the background. So we'll make the background black or like a gray-ish thing. Let me turn off the saturation, just make it a nice gray. And then for the foreground, we'll say this is like your life bar, your XP bar or whatever. So I can set this up and go to value. So the min value is 0, the max value is 100. We'll say this is 50. You can see that this is halfway filled up. So typically for an XP bar, you would see something like this. You can also use textures for this. So if I use a style box texture and load in, like say this one, you can see that it will stretch to this, or I believe we can also turn this. Yeah. So you can set up your own texture like this. Normally you would have a texture that actually fits this instead of just grabbing something random from your project and filling it. But you can see that this, as we fill it up, will show more and more of the bar. There are a couple of, I want to say GD Quest did something. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. GD Quest clip, I want to say it was. Flipping masks. Was this it? Please don't play out loud. Okay, thank you. So GD Quest, yeah, okay. So GD Quest actually has a great video on this already. I'm not subscribed to them, and I mean to be, but I would totally check out GD Quest. They usually have a lot of really handy things like this. So this video goes over flipping masks. So these are like UI elements that you can like clip something inside of. So for example, you see that this frog is like a child of this. You can turn on clip, and the frog draws behind it now. And you can kind of use that for your UI. So you can see that we have this up here. And then he sets up these particles. And then he clips them. And so you can see that we only have that amount. So it's kind of, that's how I would do it if you wanted something a bit more complex, like an animated health bar. Like what you said, Lust Stars, if you want an animation for the health bar, this is typically what you would do if you wanted something like this. You can also do an animated like texture in the background and clip it to it. But if you wanted something simple, you would just use a progress bar. If you wanted something more complex, you would probably set up something like this, where you have the bar and then you clip it to it, and then you kind of change the fill amount as the bar gets more full. That's how I think most people do that. Sorry, I keep closing the chat. I need like a fourth monitor for chat. Let's see, what other things are there worth talking about right now? I'm kind of running out of things to talk about, I won't lie. Pull up my Obsidian and see if there's anything that I have written down for this. Hello, Dam. How's it going? Also, sorry for YouTube chat. Allegedly, it is delayed, according to what JW said. I don't know what the delay is, but Twitch chat is a lot faster than YouTube chat, allegedly. What is my favorite thing from the 4.3 update? Let me... I have an answer, but I don't remember it. I know for a fact. Let me see if I can find this. Oh god, what was it? It's a minute delay? There's no way the YouTube delay is a minute. That is insane. Okay, I need to fix that. I wanted to make it stereo, but only got mono. I can help you with... I can go over that in a second as well. 1 minute. Do I use a tablet pen for making assets? A little bit. So I don't make a lot of assets. The art in this project was drawn by my friend Nui. She's an amazing artist and did all the pixel art for this. So she's the person responsible for that. I make really not pretty art, like this dude. No, he's called Bozo in this project. This dude, I made this dude. And yes, I did use a tablet pen for that, but it's just pixel art, so you can definitely do it with a mouse. 1 minute is an insane delay, by the way. I will definitely get that fixed before Tuesday, because that is like an unacceptable Twitch chat delay, especially when I'm doing something like, I called it Twitch chat, sorry. Especially when I'm doing something like coding and not like a game that would care about stream delay. But back to 4.3. What the hell was it in 4.3 that I really liked? Web builds. Web builds. So web builds in 4.2 are terrible. And I can probably show this off with the game that we made. Web builds are still not perfect, but in 4.2, there are a lot of issues with web builds. The main one being performance in Firefox. So if I go ahead and load into this next level, we're going to run into that for a second. It's not your fault built into YouTube. I'm fairly certain that there might... Like, you can see that it just froze. Like, all I did was spawn a box and the game froze. And I have a really, really good computer, but for Firefox, in web builds, it kind of just is shit in 4.2 and below. In 4.3, it is a little bit better. And the fact that they are moving in that direction is something that I like. So you can see this will... Okay, that didn't freeze that time, but it likes to freeze a lot. The fact that they're working better on web builds is good, and I really like that. So that's probably my favorite thing from 4.3. As for the actual changes, I swear that there was a page that I went to. I guess technically I have a change in 4.3 that I made. I'm gonna show that off for just a second because that's cool. So in 4.3, there is this button here called Center Node on Reparent, and I added that. What does it mean? Well, let's say we have in this main scene, we have a bunch of nodes. So let's say I have a node. Sorry, I keep adding a node. I mean to add a node 2D. So if I have a node 2D here, I duplicate it, move it over, duplicate it, move it here, and here. Let's say that I want to move all of these nodes to a similar parent. If I make a node 2D, and I want to reparent all of these nodes to this node, or sorry, that wasn't a new node. You can see that this new node that it made went to the origin. So if you are making something like a ring of coins, this would now rotate around the origin, which really sucks. So the change that I made, the little change that I made, was that if I select these 4 nodes, turn on this object, or this, not object, this option, reparent to new node, this now makes a node in the center. There's a little bug, it looks like, where the rendering gets broken, but so now there's a node in the center, and if you rotate it, it rotates around the center, which was a pain in the ass for me because I wanted to make a ring of coins, and making a new node, parented it to the center, and made it rotate around the entire level. But now you can have the option to make a node in the center. And that is my one contribution to Godot so far, was this feature. And it took me like 3 days to figure it out because the Godot source code is very impressive and full of very many parts. See what else is going on. What else can I do to show right now? Oh, I guess I can do this. Another thing that I would love to show off one stream after, or at some point, is how I make the animations for my videos, because I've had a couple of people ask how I do that. So let me open this up really quickly in another window. I wish you didn't open up on that window. I guess that doesn't really matter. So one day I would really like to go over how these animations work and maybe build one out with people, because I think more people could use this animation library thing. So for the last video that I made, the strategy pattern video, this is the animation file for it. The character who can fire at enemies. We want to give this character upgrades that alter their shot. Something like damage multiplier. So you've probably seen that. Stop saying bitlytic, more like stinklytic, please. I'm gonna yell at you when we play League later. But one thing that is really, really amazing about this, like, animation. So if I fucked up. I opened up a new window. Terminal. The coding motion canvas. So it's called motion canvas, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. I'm going to open up a new window. So this is the project file. So for example, so this intro section is one animation file. I think if I click on it, it opens. Yeah. So this is the animation file for that. I don't use comments because I hopefully don't have to touch these files ever again, but here we are. So for example, the way that this works is here I keep the code on screen, and then at this point I wipe the code away. So I can look for this animation event inside of here. So I can say wipe code. So here I have this yield wait until, wipe code. Once wiped code becomes true, it will run this animation here where it lowers the code and then turns the opacity off. Hello, Redstone 40. How's it going? Super late raid. Is that from Elsa Vera's raid? But so here's how the animation works. And what I can do is I can kind of change this. So if, like in my video, if I change like the way I say this, like maybe I say this later, or I want to change where it is, I can just drag this over and everything will move over. Modular approach. Enter the strategy pattern. Let's say that's off center. I can just drag this back. And then these will run the strategy pattern wherever that's set up. Before we apply this to a game, this is really, really good for code animations. Because what you can do is you can set up your code and you can have them show up and you can have them change as the animation changes. Did I make this video editor? I did not. This video editor is made by, sorry, let's move that over there. Artificial. I don't know how to pronounce it. Artificial. This guy. I'm kind of a new sub. Just wanted to ask if there's any app you could suggest for us devs to make an intro animation for ourselves to put in our games. What kind of intro animation? Like, do you mean like animating, like drawing? Because I would recommend Asprite if you want to do pixel art. Otherwise, I think Krita is good for animation. If you're talking about like coding animations, I'd probably use this. But so this guy made his own animation library, which is called Motion Canvas. I'm sure he has a link here somewhere. He doesn't. Motion Canvas. I feel like I know you. I don't know what that means. It's a very ominous message. But so this is the animation library that he made. Oh, you're talking about my videos. I thought you meant about... Oh my god, dude, my heart dropped. I thought you were talking about you know me in real life. And I was like, I hope you don't. Yeah, I make videos on YouTube. I'm actually live on YouTube as well, but I made these videos on YouTube. You probably know me from my SM64 tutorials. That's what I'm most known for, obviously. Where I teach people how to mod SM64. These faces don't have SM64 specific material information. But yes, so I would recommend Motion Canvas if you're doing animations, though. They're really nice. The only problem is you write them in JavaScript. But, if you can get over that, it's actually a really nice editor because there are a lot of things that you can do. One thing that I did was I wrote my own little mini library to it. So, for example, I have this mini state machine editor thing inside of it. So you can kind of write your own, extension to it. So I should have, where is it? Util? Animate. So I have this animation player that I wrote that kind of takes part, like, of what the actual animation uses and runs it as a state machine. So for example, when I have the player shoot, I set its animation state to shoot. So inside of this function, we say robot state is shoot. And then afterwards, the robot state goes back to idle. So instead of having to like set the animation frames themselves, I actually have my own little library inside of this that sets its own sprite animations. There's a lot of things you can do with it, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's open source, it's free, it's really well documented. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Every video, I did use, so for the finite state machine video, this is also in Motion Canvas. And I have not looked back after picking it up. This video uses After Effects, and I hate it. I hated making this video so much because it uses After Effects in Premiere, and writing code in that is terrible. But yeah, so I would recommend highly, if you want to make animations like this, to use Motion Canvas. But if you guys would be interested in seeing some of that, I think one day maybe I could go through and make an animation using Motion Canvas on stream. That YouTube delay is really bugging me. I saw one of your videos long ago. Yeah, I was joking about the SM64 thing. I'm sure most people haven't seen my SM64 stuff. But if you have, hi, I guess. The SM64 stuff is really cool. I was thinking about the Godot screen at the start of the game and wondering about turning it black and putting a whole intro animation file like MP4 or something in the main scene loading to menu. Can you not do an intro movie in Godot? I want to say... No, I guess you can't. Maybe. What app to make said animation with? So it kind of depends on the type of animation you would want to make. I'm not an expert on this, but if you wanted to do like an animation that you draw and animate yourself, you could use Krita or Sprite. If you want to if you want to use like motion graphics, in motion canvas would be really nice for that. There is this motion canvas would be really nice for this. It's kind of just up to what kind of animation you would want to make. But I'm not an expert on that. So that would kind of be just like you finding out what works for you. But yeah, I would say like if you did want to do that, I believe you can just play videos directly inside of Godot. Let me see. There was a thing actually. I had a question from someone a long time ago that I forgot to answer. Another pain in the butt for me, if you don't mind, was audio. I wanted to make it stereo, but only got mono. For example, enemies on the right of the player turned out mono instead of mostly in the right ear. So that was actually something that I saw someone do on stream recently. So I'm kind of qualified to talk about that. So if I wanted to play a sound from a side of the player, instead of using audio stream player, which this is probably what you're using, you would use an audio stream player 2D. And then you would position this on the enemy, load in the sound stream here, and I want to say if you turn max distance down to somewhere, this should enable different audios. Yes, I did remember that you had a question. Let me... Here, I can actually throw something together to show this. So inside of my player, I'm just going to write some shit code really quickly. So func physics process if input.isAction just pressed debug. I'm going to add a debug command really quickly. Debug audio. Debug audio. Then I'm gonna do... I need an audio scene. Let's do the audio stream player 2D. Video scene. I'm gonna save this off to its own scene. I don't really care where this goes. This is just for testing purposes, so... Then I can audio scene. Load this in. Fond audio equals audio scene. Instantiate fond audio dot global position. I'm gonna set this to the mouse's global position. Fond audio dot play. And then I think that should be enough to do it. So let me load in an audio clip really quickly. I think I should have one inside of this project. Sounds. What sound would work for this? Okay, sure, that works. Let's drop that in, load the audio here. Why am I... Oh, because I'm on the groups tab. Signals inspector. Put in blip. Make sure this is not a looping blip. I don't want this to loop forever. This does not loop at all. Then I want to say that this is enough to do that. Oh no, I need to get tree.root.add a child on the audio. So you can actually hear that this is Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that. Let me bind this to a different key, because that's the same as the enemy spawning. I thought it would just play one time. I didn't realize that it would... here's a warning. It's going to do it again. That's so funny that it just loops like that. Let's change this to... do we have a poll to select one of the 3 game ideas? No, we don't yet. I'm going to make that poll after I end stream, but I didn't want to sit there on Discord and make the poll, because that sounds boring to do. Let me load this. So I think... So you can actually hear. It's going... I don't know if... I hope it goes through on the stream. It should be to the left. And then move its way to the right. So that one's based on the audio stream player. We can actually change the strength of that, I want to say, by changing the fall off. So if we change this to like 500 pixels, I think this should be a stronger. So you can hear it's like basically only on the right ear. Basically only in the left ear. So something like that. So that's how I would do that. It's just the audio stream player needs to be audio stream player 2D, and then you need to change the position to whichever. So yeah, that should be that. If you did do that, I would also usually have an audio manager, or you could attach it directly to the enemy. So for example, the enemy scene could have this audio player, and then blip. Load that in. So the enemy on damaged if health isn't stored here. Do I have an on death thing? Let me see. So health has a node. Health changed. Funk on health changed. Health. New health. Float. Void. If new health less than or equal to 0. Blip. Play. This blip. And then just drag this on for now. So blip.play. This isn't going to do anything currently. I named it blip with 2 eyes. And then I need to connect this node to here, so I will do that. Health changed, connect. Select this, pick. On health changed. And then I think that should be enough to do that. So if I drop this, I go over here and kill this guy. Yeah, it plays a blip. It's going to be a little hard to hear, because they're so close. Come here. It's going to be hard to hear because it's so close. I can just do it whenever they spawn. I mean, that's kind of the same as what I was doing before, but yeah, so it kind of attaches itself to the enemy. That's maybe how I would do that, because I don't think it's super resource intensive to have a bunch of audio players in the scene. I would say, yeah, I don't think it's very intensive to have a bunch of them. Let's see, were there any other questions? Yeah, does anyone have any random ass questions about Godot that I can answer right now? Because I would love to just show off things. Trying to think if there's anything else I can show off currently. Oh yeah, new tile maps. For anyone who's just getting into Godot or has just updated, in case you haven't heard, tile map layers are new tile maps now. They are basically the same as tile maps before, but this layers is like the whole object. So watch out for that. You remove the VOD? I don't. Until it becomes an issue, I won't. And I don't know if it's going to become an issue if if it does become an issue, I do save all of my VODs, and I would be willing to upload them in a different place. What I will say is, on YouTube, I wish YouTube had a better way to do this. So the VOD includes the music on YouTube component. It will be part of. So this music doesn't get removed from the VOD. On Twitch, however, I do have it set up to remove the music. So if it gets removed from YouTube, you will find it on Twitch with the music removed. All the broadcasts should be here. I for however many weeks it is, but I do save these manually. So if they do get taken down from YouTube, I will post them elsewhere without the music. So, can you explain what preload does? Yeah, hold up. There's like multiple questions, and there's an emoji in the way. Godot question. I'm a very beginner dev. Do you think I should learn A-star pathfinding or just learn the navigation nodes in Godot? It depends on what you want to do. If you want to learn just programming, then I would say take as many shortcuts as you're able to so you can learn the basics. And then once you learn the basics, you can go back and try to recreate what those nodes do yourself so you understand them better. So like, for example, if I want to learn programming, I don't want to learn how to do A-star as well. I would just use A-star Pathfinder or whatever it is. It's called like Pathfinding or A-star Grid. There's some A-star something. I want to say there's something somewhere in Godot. I would use that so that you don't have to worry about everything all at once. You kind of minimize the things you're trying to learn at once. Because like if you're learning how to program and you're learning what A-star is and you're learning how to handle enemy movement and you want to handle player movement, that's a lot of things. I would say just to cut out as many of those things as you can and let the engine take care of them in the meantime so you can learn the more basic things. Can you explain what preload does? Does it load save scenes for us to manipulate them, or is it something else? So preload is a way to load resources. So the most common way you'll see it used is you'll load in a scene and you will instantiate it. So what this does is it looks for the scene inside of the file system. So it grabs this, and this variable is essentially a loaded and ready version of this scene. So what we can do is, since it's a packed scene, we can call instantiate, which creates a copy of that scene, and that is a ready-to-use version in the game, and then we can add it to the tree. You can use preload with anything that you would use load with, so there is a slight difference. I don't use it in this project. I might use it in this project. Let me see. I don't. So there is a difference between preload and load. The main difference being that preload tries to load it at start time. So it will go through and it will set up the scene. Instead of loading it from disk when you need to use it, it will load it the second the game starts. So everything gets loaded at once, you know, which is better or worse. A-star Grid 2D class you can use. Is that... Oh, it's not a node. Yes, okay, sorry. There it is. It's not a node. Easy Taco, you were asking about that. The A-star Grid 2D, I would use this instead of trying to make your own A-star at first. I would learn everything you can before doing that, and then if you want to come back and learn it later, I would do that. But back on preload, so preload kind of walks through the dependencies of this scene. So let's say this audio scene had another preload inside of it, it would preload that preload, and it would kind of go through and set everything up at start time. So what you can end up doing, preload is really great because you know everything is ready. But it can run into issues where if the enemy scene preloads this scene, you could end up with cyclic dependencies, which kind of got fixed in 4.3. It's a lot better in 4.3, but in 4.2 you could actually like half corrupt your project by preloading scene A and scene A preloads scene B. And so it kind of infinitely preloads itself. So there are times that you would rather just use load, which I don't believe can get used in this context. I guess it can, where this gets loaded whenever it gets asked for. So as far as I know, this is when load would be actually run, I think. But one of the also main differences is you can call load down here. It's like if I wanted to load the sprite, I can load it here. You cannot use preload down here, though. Okay, I'm a liar, I guess. What? I didn't think that preload could be used down there. Oh, preload is a keyword. Okay, sorry, we just learned something together. So this isn't exactly a function. It needs to be constant time. So you have to use a string. So if I did like var my file, and then I passed in all of this, and then later I wanted to say my file, and I want to load in specifically this one, I couldn't use preload for that? Yes, okay, I can't use preload for that, but I can use load. So if you want to load something at runtime, you want to use load, usually. Like if it's something that's like, it can change. Or if you run into cyclic dependencies, you would use load. Okay, what else is going on? Have I ever done grid-based movement? Grid turn-based movement. So I actually did do a project where I tried that a while back. Let me see if I can find it. In the meantime, I can read something else. I've never tried to make a platformer. How do you go about creating a game like that? You learn the different parts that you want to do. So if you kind of break it down to different parts. So let's just open up Notepad really quickly. So like, what do you want to learn? Like what makes up a platformer? You need like character movement, and that's very top level still. So what is character movement made of? Move left and right. So how do you move left and right? You look that up. You need to be able to jump. So what is jump? Well, we change the velocity to a certain amount. Okay, so you learn how to do that. And then the character flies off into the sky. So you're like, okay, well, I need to apply gravity. So you look up gravity. You find out how to do gravity, and then at that point, you've got character movement, basic character movement down. And then it's like, okay, well, now I want to do different levels. And so you look up like, okay, how do I change the scene? And then you do that, and then you're like, okay, well, I want to load to a different part of the scene. So you want to look at like how to carry information over. So that's how you would do that, like about anything. But I think if you wanted a more specific, like just like not hand-holdy approach, but more of like someone telling you step by step how to do that. Unfortunately, you would just have to look up a tutorial for it. But luckily, platformers are the most popular tutorials. So I'd go to Bracky's. He makes a platformer here, and he shows you how to get a sprite on the screen, and how to build the levels, and how to make movement. Where was movement? Oh, this was movement. So he shows you how to make movement. So I would do that. Meaning if, for example, I had a lobby scene. Sorry, I was still looking for the project while I'm reading this. If I had a lobby scene, I could have the other scenes it leads to preloaded, so there wouldn't be any need of loading screens and stuff. I believe there would be a slight loading screen whenever the scene shifts over, because it has to like load in the new nodes and put them in a memory, but it would be very quick. I would say that preload would take slightly less time than load. So if you can do that, I would say that it would do that. Are you participating in any game jam as of now? As of right now, no. However, this is the Bracky's game jam. Is that this weekend? Did I miss it? I want to say there was a Bracky's game jam coming up sometime soon. Depending on when that is, I might participate in that. Okay, it starts in a week. I'm probably not participating in that. However, Ludum Dare, I tend to participate in 1 or 2 Ludum Dares every year. So the next Ludum Dare is coming up in a month. So I will almost certainly be participating in Ludum Dare. I hate that all the answers to the Brachy's question are coming in, like, right now. Like, this just showed up for me, and I'm pretty sure that, like, we're a minute or two away from when that was. I really don't like this YouTube chat delay. Ugh. Okay, I was still looking for that Godot project. Let me see if this is the right one. This might open up on screen. Okay, yes. So I can answer... Whose question was that? Pistol Aso? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. I did do grid-based movement. So I was actually playing around with this a few months ago. So if you've ever played like Caves of Cud or whatever, this is very similar movement where I've got my arrow keys. So this is the guy that I'm moving around. This is an enemy that's just roaming. Where I have pathfinding, so this guy should see me. So he tries to follow me. So I have tried turn-based movement before. And it was a bit of a bitch, to be honest with you. This is the code for it. It is a very long file full of very disgusting things. But I do feel confident that if I came back to this, I could write this in a better way. So yes, I have tried turn-based movement. I would love to revisit it one day. Maybe in a bit better code. But which file is this again? I don't even remember what file this is that I'm looking at. Grid manager? Yeah, so this is the manager for the grid, and it's the entire, it's like 250 lines long. And it should not be this large. Anyways, so yes, I have done turn-based movement, and it was a very fun weekend project to do. Also, I got a question, if you don't mind. How would you animate a tactical unit for a tactical RPG game? I don't know what you mean. Like, when they're attacking? Because you would just, like... You would have an animation player, and you would just play an animation while something goes on. And if you need to call code during an animation, you could use the call method track, which is my favorite part of Godot. Let me see if I can find that. I think I should... I think I have a call animation track somewhere in here. Yeah, here we go. We have a call animation track, which calls a function at the end of the animation. And this function is called end attack on the player. And that is here. It just runs this. But I don't know, like, what specifically about animating a tactical unit for an RPG game do you mean? Let me look at the Brachy's game jam a little bit more. So does this have like a... Does this have a theme? Okay, it will have a theme. What themes do we have currently? The Village, Calm Before the Storm, Oceans, An Unexpected Gift, Ancient Discovery, Trees, Who Is It, Calm Down. Some of these are cool. Some of these aren't. I don't really like Ancient Discovery or Trees. Or either of these last two. I feel like Unexpected Gift, Oceans, and The Village are cool. Or sorry, not The Village. Sorry, both of these are cool. Let me see, what does this say? I got a big paragraph to read now. Yeah, like the unit can make a bunch of actions, and I need to play an animation when it does that action. I can move it to a tile, and I need to play the move animation when it does that. I can select an attack, and it needs to play an attack animation when it does that. I wonder if the Shaggy dev has anything about that. Let me pull that up on YouTube really quickly. I know the Shaggy Dev is also a really good Godot YouTuber that if you don't watch, you totally should. This guy. I know that he has done some tactics stuff. Developing a tactics engine. Does he mention level structure? Unit structure.
Operates at a high level.
Let's watch this for a second.
Let's dive into units now. If we ignore artwork, which obviously varies significantly between these two prototypes, but doesn't really impact the overall node itself, doesn't really do a whole lot.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if he mentions how the animations work, but he does mention that it has an animation.
Selection, defense, visual. Animation controller is, as the name suggests, responsible for playing animations. But animations in this game are a bit more than just visual. Animations also define when effects should resolve, so that when a unit fires a gun, for instance, the target won't react until the animation of the gun firing is actually at a point that the bullet would have left the weapon.
Okay, yeah.
Every action.
So he doesn't go over specifics, it looks like. I don't know if this is open source or not. It's not. But I would say if you did have questions about specifically tactics games, I believe his Discord is public. Yes, so he has a public Discord. I don't know if he's super open to talking about it, but if you did have questions about tactic stuff, I would watch his videos because he has he's made tactic videos. He's specifically like, I feel like he's very perfect for what you're asking about. And I would say check him out because he has exactly what you're looking for. What's your opinion on an announced game jam theme? For example, one of the themes in Brackeys is Combo for the Storm. All I can think is Survival with the Storm State, but surely that's what anyone thinks. Survival with the Storm State. I actually didn't think of that. So I kind of think of like Combo for the Storm is like what I thought it was like maybe like a shopping, like where you work at like a shopping center and you have to get like products out before Black Friday starts. And then as Black Friday starts, like, you know, the calm is like you're putting things out and then you have to get everything out before Black Friday starts, and then everyone gets in and starts like beating everyone up. So I kind of try to think of it less of like the obvious answer. I think something like this one would work really well. I had a similar question to this. How do I make the code? Wait for the player to make a choice, then continue working. Something like yield in Godot 3.x. I mean, we have yield in Godot 4, but it's called a wait. I think is like the exact same thing. I don't know if that's true, but we have a wait. Or you can kind of do that, or you just like you hold off on processing this until that becomes true. I think a wait is what you're looking for there. Oh, hello, Henno. How's it going? I hear things about optimizing using singletons. Can you give an example of when you should use a singleton for optimizing and what the singleton is used for? So singletons are an interesting one because you don't want to overuse them. That's usually what people say is don't overuse them. For optimizing, I'm not sure what you mean by optimizing. I'm assuming performance, but maybe you mean code like clarity. I would need more specific things, I think. So for example, like if you were to ask me like, okay, code clarity. So let's say, for example, I want enemies to, like I have a score counter and I want to increment that whenever enemies die. One way that we could set this up is we could have just a score manager. Okay, we'll write this now. We'll write this now. Let's say I had a score manager. Auto load. Score manager. And in the score manager, we have our current score. We'll set this at 0. And then We want to increment score by an amount. I guess this would be a float. Amount float. Current score plus equals amount. So one thing that this does is, let's say in the enemy, whenever the enemy dies. So we'll say we'll make another function. Func on health changed, new health float turns void. I need to do a couple things. I need to add the auto load here. Util auto load score manager. I can say score manager for if new health is equal to 0 or manager dot increment score. Let's say you get 10 points for an enemy that you die or that dies. And then I need to connect the health change signal, which I guess is already connected. So this works, and this is fine. But let's say that later we create another auto load called like enemy death history or something, like enemy death history. And we have a list of like killed enemies. And then we want to add enemy to this, where we take in the enemy node. Do I have an enemy class? I do. I can say killed enemies dot add, or dot, is it dot add dot append? Dot append enemy. So later we come back and we want to add this. Okay, that's great. I can go to the enemy, and now whenever the enemy dies, I have to also add like enemy death history dot add enemy self. This sucks because every auto load that you change, or everywhere that you need to change this, let's say we had 20 different enemy types, we would have to add this new line to every single enemy. That sucks because that's just like code work, and that's never fun. So instead what we can do, and we're adding a lot of auto loads here, but we can have what's called an event bus. So I can call this enemy event bus. And then I can create a signal called enemy died, or enemy death, and pass in the enemy. And then have a function called, like, what would it be called? On enemy death, or something like that, or like emit death, which passes in the enemy. And then we can call enemy death.emit and pass in the enemy. So what's the purpose of this? Well, inside of the enemy, instead of calling the score manager directly, instead of calling the enemy death history manually from the enemy, we can just call the enemy event bus. I need to add this as an auto load. We can call the enemy event bus, and we can call emit death, pass in self. And for the enemy, that's all they have to call, because inside of the enemy death history, whenever this node gets registered, we can say enemy event bus dot enemy death dot connect add enemy, and inside of the score manager, we can ready this. So this will need a little bit of changing. I don't know why I added void there. I mean, that's technically right, but enemy event bus dot enemy death dot connect to increment score, or we could do like on enemy death and create our own function down here. If you wanted to separate these out, you totally could. And then we can call increment score with like the enemy's score or something like that. Let's say the enemy has a score variable. So what this does is this kind of decouples the enemy from the things that care about the enemy dying. So if there's nothing that cares about the enemy dying, well, the event bus is still there. So we still call that function. It's just that nothing cares about it. Whereas here, so like, let's say we had another, I'm not going to do it, but let's say that we had another thing that cared about the enemy dying. You don't have to change anything in the enemy. You can use this event bus as a bus for events. You can kind of tuck that event to things that care about it. And the enemy doesn't have to care about the score manager. The enemy doesn't have to care about the death history. The only thing that happens is the enemy cares about the event bus, death history cares about the event bus, and the score manager cares about the event bus. So that's one example of when I would use an auto load for code clarity, is kind of decoupling the enemy from the specific managers of the game, instead of having an auto load in between where you kind of just like hook things into it. I hope that answers your question. That was a lot of talking. That's a lot of auto loads. But I really hope that answers the question. Not a game dev question. Have I seen the new Sonic 3 trailer? That is such a funny question, and I have not. I've also not seen either of the Sonic movies. So by connect, whatever script that emits the said signal triggers the function connected to it in this script. I want to hope that I'm understanding your question right, but yes. So whenever the enemy dies, it calls this function on the event bus. The event bus emits the enemy death signal, and anything that cares about this enemy death signal will have its function called. So the event bus doesn't know what's listening. All that needs to happen is whatever's listening needs to know about the event bus. So anything that wants to subscribe to it can, and it isn't forcing it upon anything. I hope that answers your question. But yes. So when the enemy dies, let's say something else. Wasn't the question about singletons and not event-driven design? Yes. So singletons, I don't know. So it was kind of like an example of when you should use a singleton. And this is how you would use it in Godot using auto loads, because we don't have strict singletons in Godot. So that's kind of just like one of the examples of when it would be, because like when should use it as a singleton is a very strong question that just has a lot of different answers. So I would kind of like I guess like the baseline is if it makes enough sense, if it decouples a lot of things, you can use a singleton. So yeah, my example was very much like an event-driven design, but it was using a singleton. M and L series games. I don't know what that is. M and L games. Oh, Mario and Luigi? No, I have not. I think I will be playing the new one that's coming out on the Switch, though. Like Brothership, whatever it is. Let's see if there were a few more questions. I don't think so. Yeah, I agree. If does that make sense, or does that sound right, or is there anything else that you feel like I'm missing in my explanation for Easy Taco? Because I could just be like, you know, ranting on about random shit that doesn't pertain to his question. Their question, sorry. You use autoloads everywhere. It's actually really difficult to... It's such a trap, because sometimes you shouldn't use autoloads. Like, I think in this project, I used autoloads a little bit too much. So you can see that I used, like... What is this, like 10 autoloads? 11 autoloads? That's too damn many. That is too damn many autoloads. I was wondering if you had an idea about how you would go about making movement in such a game in 2D, because the environment features jumping and moving in 8 directions. I don't really have an idea. I won't lie. Because it's not really something I've ever thought about. Let me look at some gameplay. What would it look like? Like, I assume you're talking about the old ones on, like, the, I believe SNES it was. I don't know. I guess it would be, like, know if there's tile-based, but... Oh, yo, Cosmic, how's it going? In terms of making sure your code is readable and optimized, are there any differences in different kinds of jobs, like game dev versus web dev? Yes. So code tends to be more readable in web dev, I would say, because people have higher standards there, I think. Although I don't know. Obviously, I've never worked in a professional game dev setting. I work in a professional web dev setting. Is there a difference in terms of making sure your code is readable and optimized? I would say that in game dev, it really depends. If you're adding onto stuff in an engine, like in Godot, readability matters a lot more than optimization in a lot of cases, because like you're not touching like super mission critical code. So unless you do something wrong, you don't really have to worry about the optimization side. I would say in web dev, like specifically for server stuff, readability is much more of a concern than optimization, because like in a video game, you have to worry about something being rendered in 1/60th of a second, or sometimes 165th of a second. Whereas in web dev, if something takes 2 seconds to load, I think most people wouldn't really care that much. So in game dev, it's a little bit more of a balancing act between readable and optimized, whereas in web dev, it's very much more readability. Like that is by far king in web dev. Let's see. I'm just thinking more in a web design way. Makes more sense to explain it in a different way for game dev. I would just explain singletons as managers. You have a few workers and use a single manager to coordinate said workers. Yeah, I would say that's a good way to say it. Is like singletons are very much good for like, I mean, they're singletons because it's kind of like the single point of contact for a bunch of things. You kind of just use that as a, you know, instead of grabbing specific nodes, or I don't know. I don't know how exactly a great way to explain it would be, but yeah, it's kind of just like the overarching dude. Like you expect it to be there, and everything referencing it will reference it. Yeah, everything referencing it will reference it. Yeah, for sure. Any plans for new videos? Somewhat. There are, so videos are really interesting because to me a lot of things are kind of like obvious information because it's like you've worked in it for so long. Not saying that I'm a better coder, but like certain things that I've just like used so much just seem kind of obvious to me. So I'm hoping that whenever I'm working on the stream, I'll get more video ideas because people will ask more questions about things. One video that I was thinking about was the animation tree thing that I went over earlier. The other thing was data driving things. So, for example, instead of making like, let's see, does this project? Yeah, so in this project, instead of having like oh no, this one doesn't have 3 different types of enemies, I guess. Does it? No, that's not great. So like, let's say you had like a red enemy, a blue enemy, and a yellow enemy. Instead of creating a red enemy scene, a blue enemy scene, and a yellow enemy scene, if they're all kind of the same with different values, going over like how to data drive that so you can save resources on the side and change those at runtime. That's kind of something that I would do, that I'm wanting to explore. There were a few other things like resources in general. I've heard quite a bit of confusion with those, and people don't seem to have the greatest understanding of those, which is like understandable because like if you're thinking about it as scriptable objects from Unity, it's a little bit different. There's also, let's see, I have a few other things. I would love to look more into 2D pathfinding because that seems to be something else that there's also not a ton of resources on. A few different patterns like the decorator and command pattern I think would be interesting to look into and see if that's something that is worth putting a video of. see. World environments also seem to be something that people don't fully grasp, which I don't either. But I would love to kind of get more information on that and see what people do or don't understand and kind of clarify some of that. A couple of things about autoloads. I think I might just do a video about autoloads. Because that's also something, I'm actually going to write that down. General autoload video. Because, you know, questions like that where people are like, when would you recommend using an autoload? I think going over like a few different patterns like event bus, a manager pattern, using an autoload for carrying information between scenes, because that's also something autoloads can do. You can have it so that, I think I do it here somewhere in this one. I think I should have an autoload that does it. Autoload. Next level info. Yeah, so here we go. So for carrying information in between levels. So for example, in this one, whenever we get a new like power up, we add that to this so that the next time the level loads, you'll have that power up and it'll like play some sort of thing that transitions that. I think kind of just doing a general how you can use autoloads video would be really nice. Because people definitely go over it. It's just usually people include them in videos about how to make a platformer rather than a video on their own. And that's kind of the types of videos that I would like to do, are just like really quick, here's how this works, here's how you can use it, regardless of what project you're using. But if anyone has video ideas, I am definitely down to hear them out. Another one that I had was maybe some sort of inventory stuff, but that's kind of like game specific. And I'm not sure. That's very much more of like that's less of one feature and more of like a concept. Or sorry, less of a concept and more of a feature. And I don't know. I don't know if I would go over that, but we'll see. All I know about world environments is fogs and nothing else. World environments are actually so fucking cool. But I don't use them nearly enough. Let me open up a project really quickly. World environments are really cool, even in 2D. Or... what the fuck was this project called? Lightfarer? Yeah, here we go. So this is a project that I did for the Pirate Software Game Jam back in January or February. And in this project, I don't think it has saved settings. Not sure. So you're probably gonna hear music when it starts up. Sorry in advance. It's not starting up. It's cool. Okay, we're crashing. That's fine. I have a web build somewhere that I can grab. Lightfarer. So this project, Game Juice. Maybe I can do a collaboration with JW Duth on Game Juice, because I'm not a game juicer. I won't lie. So for this project, it uses world environment nodes for these shadows. So for example, let me grab the thing up here. So the shadows, how they work and how the world is super dark, is controlled through a world environment. And I don't think, like if you were to ask people how you would make shadows in a 2D game, I don't think people would know off the bat. But if they understood world environments, they would immediately understand how. So world environments are like super cool. And I think doing a full video of that. Now, I did look at who said that, JW. I know it's you. I'm saying we should do a collaboration on Game Juice. But yeah, so the shadows are controlled through a world environment. There are a lot of things you can do with world environments, like... I really wish this gave me like an output of like why this broke. Should have like a start level, intro level. So there is, like, you can change the background types. You can change shadows. I think for mine, how did I do this? Inside of the world, I added a global light of dark or something. There's a bunch of, yeah, there's a bunch of different things that you can do with world environments that I don't think is explored nearly as much as it should be. Did you see the winner of the newest Pirate Software Game Jam? I did not. I've seen this. Didn't you put 2 lighting, 1 for the shadow, and 1 to lighten your character? Maybe. This was almost a year, or no, it wasn't a year ago. This was like probably like 7 months ago, something like that. I don't remember how this was done. Let's see. World environment goes with game juice well, actually. Yeah, kind of. Like motion blur and things like that. Can you make a video about different ways of saving and how to implement them in a game script? Auto-saving or saving different slots? I think specifically things like auto-saving and saving different slots would kind of just be up to implementation, and less of like that's a specific use case rather than like how it works. And I would say, I think there are already really great videos on Godot for saving and loading. I would say probably by GD's Quest. Let's see. Let's take a look. So there's DevWorm. I trust DevWorm.
Is important to any game, no matter if you want to remember the player data. So to get started with saving data in our Godot,
what does he use?
Save this data file on
other than the fact that he says Godot,
file
but,
access
you know,
inside of the
that's
file.
neither here nor there.
Variable to more depth. Check
Okay, yeah. So like saving and loading, there's already like really quick videos on that. Yeah, we love Cave Story around here. Have any of the One Shot songs shown up yet? I'm queuing up One Shot. We're gonna listen to One Shot OST really quickly. Where is it? Who made One Shot? High Margin. We're gonna listen to the simulation.
File access.
So yeah, there's already videos on saving and loading. I would totally check those out. I could do some other save load things. Like a member of our Discord, Mr. Articulate Python or Alice, has made, I don't know if it's public of hers, but she has her own save system called Grumple, which is this. It uses its own encoding, and you can encode any object with it. So, if you were interested in that, she has that, and I would join the Discord and search for that. That is an interesting way of doing it. Oh yeah, I wanted to check the latest Pirate Software Game Jam winner. I actually did not keep up with the last Pirate Software Game Jam because I was moving. I'm really sad that the Pirate Software Game Jam happened when it did, because I really liked the theme. It's just that I was in the process of moving states when it started, and I had missed like basically the first week. Pirate Software Game Jam. How do I see the last one? 15? I don't know how to see it. We'll get back to that later. Have I ever played of In Stars and Time? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that. In Stars and Time. I'll take a look at that. I'll leave that up on my like to look at things after the stream. Let's see. Pirate Software Game Jam 15. He's only going to the 16th one. Pirate Jam? It's Twitter. Let's not go there. I don't like going to Twitter. Thank you for the link so much. I was having some problems finding it. This one, Umblight? I wonder if anyone that I know got placed high. Let me take a look. There's a few people that I talked to in the Pirate Software Discord server that I would recognize. Really? I really thought that YOLO dudes entry would have been up here somewhere. Here, whatever. Let me take a look at this. What is this? So this ranks 1 in everything. People love this game. I searched, but none of the videos were helpful enough, and I couldn't learn how to make my own saving system for a game. So what parts of saving are you confused about? Because the way that you're saying it, I'm assuming it is not the like specifically writing things to disk. I'm assuming it's a little bit more. Like, is there anything specific about saving and loading that seems to be confusing? I keep killing the chat. I've also got like 20 Firefox windows open, so let's kill a couple of these. We can kill that. We can kill this. Oh shit. That looks sick. Yeah, I'm not gonna play through this very much, but I just want to see what you were talking about with this, because it was mentioned in Twitch chat that this already looks really cool. Games like these make me want to learn 3D and like make something. Okay, I'm putting this on the other window. I'm checking this out after stream. That looks really cool. It makes me want to learn 3D. I'm actually going to show you guys the only 3D work that I've ever done in Godot, and it is not pretty. It is not pretty in the slightest. What was this called? It was almost certainly this project. What about everyone in chat? Like, do you guys use mainly 2D or 3D? Because it seems like from the Discord server... Let me see if we can look at this together for a second. It seems like the majority of people... Like, there's only 16 people who selected 2D. Or, sorry, 3D. Whereas it's about almost 30 people who selected 2D. Which, if you haven't done that, you can actually go up here and select this manually. But I'm kind of curious what everyone uses, whether you use 2D, 3D mainly, or both. Exclamation mark Discord. You're right, I need to add that command. Sorry. That Discord didn't exist the last time I streamed, and I forgot to set up Nightbot. I'll send a link, though. You are a goat for bringing that up, that I should have that. Alright, let me open this up. I think this is open. Does this work still? Oh god. Ugh. So here's the only 3D project that I've ever messed around with in Godot, which uses like a source engine type of movement. It was gonna be like a horror game with N64 style, but it never really got off the ground. This project took me so long to get anything working. And I felt really proud that I got it working, but looking back, I'm like, ugh. It's just a... Yeah. It took me a lot of messing around with 3D. There was a lot of learning how things work, learning how meshes and collisions work, learning how vectors and things work, because it is very different than 2D. It's a lot more complex. I want to know how to make a game have saving loading properties from the very beginning. I want to know the ins and outs of saving and load and understand how to implement it however I want with different projects. Okay, so you want more of You want less of how specifically to save it to file, and you want more of like how to create a save file and how to load that save file, how to have different save slots. You want it more from like a gameplay, like a kind of like a game designer perspective, instead of like a game developer perspective, I guess. That's why I think it would be nice of you to make a video on the topic and explain that. Maybe, yeah, maybe. I'll add it to the list of things to look into and see what isn't covered. What isn't covered in other videos. Maybe what could be covered. Being unhappy with your old code and knowing what to improve is a great sign of personal progress. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know how much progress I've made in 3D, though. I won't lie. I guess, like, this was just, like, an experiment of just, like, getting it to work. Because if you've ever worked with 3D and Godot and, like, Blender, it's not a smooth process by any means until you kind of get your flow working. And then once you get it working, you're like, wow, this is cool. But it's kind of, like, esoteric a little bit. 3D for me is really difficult to pull out, but seeing people saying that pixel art is actually harder, I might reconsider actually. So pixel art, I personally find it a little bit, not easier, but more approachable. Because, like, what counts as an eye texture in pixel art is like 1 pixel or 2 pixels. Whereas like an eye texture in 3D is like you have to draw it. And I'm not a drawer, I can kind of like trial and error my way around the pixels until I get something to work. Whereas like 3D is also like, if you want to make something dynamic, it's a little bit easier to do that in 3D because you just set up keyframes. Whereas in pixel art, you have to redraw every single frame, or you have to draw over the frame, which kind of sucks. Yeah, also you have a lot of math headaches in 3D. If you press W and A at the same time, normalize the vectors, you move at the same speed and not half or double the speed. Yes. Yeah. There's also just like, you have to worry about another axis. Rotation in 2D is a single variable, whereas in 3D it's a vector 3 or sometimes 4 vector. Yes, so there are, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of save tutorials that include resources, which sucks because there is the arbitrary code execution thing. But thankfully, a lot of people who mention, or not a lot of people, it's probably the most popular tutorial, I would say, which is GD Quest.
One thing you need,
so they went back and they actually mentioned that does have a risk. They have mentioned it, which is really nice. But yeah, there is definitely still a lot of people just use resources, which I will say, if you are doing resources locally and you don't expect people to like transfer save files to other people, resource saving is totally safe until people are able to trade around files. If they're able to trade around files, then it's a problem. But if it's just like on your computer and you never like do that, just double check that the resources save load properly want. So the problem with resources is you can include arbitrary code inside of the resource. So let's say that someone is like, oh, I want a save file that has like extra progress and they ask you for it. You can actually include your own arbitrary code that runs, and anything that you can write inside of Godot, anything you can write in here is included in that. So it's, if someone downloads a save file from the internet and they don't specifically check it, if they aren't a programmer, it could actually run code that could be very similar to a virus. Because you can do a lot of things in Godot. Like you can do like OS commands. What is it? It's OS dot, I mean, you can OS crash, but that doesn't. OS execute. OS execute opens up the command prompt and runs code. So you can if you use raw resources and it is ever expected that players will pass around their save files, people could write code that has os.execute in it and run things from the command prompt, which is not good. Which is why I think a lot of people say use JSON, because then you have control over what you pull from the file, and it's not possible to have arbitrary code execution there. Let's say I don't even know how to make a game save, what state the player is in, and how much they've progressed with the game's flow. Let's say I want to have the game memorize all of that out. I don't even know how to start up writing a script for it. And if I need to use singletons or have a file with the game with all the saves. Sorry, I'm thinking right now. That's... Yeah, I guess a lot of tutorials don't really cover that, because that's more of like a high-level thing. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's less of like a, how do I actually save it? And it's like, how do I structure a save? How do I pull a save? That's definitely worth looking into, I would say. So thank you for the idea. I will definitely check that one out. Okay. We're slowing down just a little bit because I am getting a little bit, not tired. I don't know what the word is. I don't have a project to work on specifically right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just make the poll really quickly. What game do you want to see made on stream? You should look out for viruses anytime you download a file from the internet, so who really cares? So the problem is, if there's a resource with arbitrary code execution, unless you specifically look inside of it, because it would be like a TRES file, or it would be some like arbitrary file format. If you look inside of that, or unless you look inside of it with a text editor that can read it, it won't show you the arbitrary code. If you scan it with a virus protector, it won't, because it's just GDScript. GDScript isn't inherently harmful. And in a lot of cases, like, yes, you should look at files for viruses. You should be on the lookout for viruses. But, like, if I'm downloading a save for a game, there should be no way, there should be zero way that that file ever produces a virus on my computer. Because I'm not running an executable, I'm loading a save file. And unless the game itself has a vulnerability, unless the game itself has a virus part of it or something like that, the save file itself should never be dangerous. So yes, I do agree that you should be on the lookout for viruses. But in a case of a save file, that is like one of the least like scary parts. Like if I'm downloading an exe, I'm looking at viruses. That is terrifying. If I'm downloading an ISO file, or like maybe like a manual or something, I'm immediately on the lookout. That has viruses potentially. If I download a save file for Cave Story, I'm not checking it for viruses. You know, like that is, there's no way that has a virus. Oh yeah, that's true, Roller Toaster. If you haven't joined the Discord, there are some really smart people in here that can help you out with things. Like, I can't check it right now because I'm writing a poll. But Miss Articulate Python, I will mention by name again, does a lot of like helping people. Like if you ask her whenever she's not busy or if she's like talking, she will probably sit there and will go over for like an hour if you want, of everything you can do. She loves talking about code. Not that I'm signing up her up for anything, but she does love talking about code. All right, how much can I write in this? 55 characters. Vampire, or I'll say survivors, like game. I'll just say some vampire survivors type game. I also, at some point, I want to get some sort of overlay or something so that Twitch and YouTube chat can see each other, because I have this, and you know, you're answering something about this, but they can't see that, so It really sucks that there's no great way to combine those. I don't think. Vampire Survivors like game, type game. The second game is the fishing game. I don't know how else to say it. I guess I could put this in a thread. And include more details about it. And then the third game is Old School. Like ADOM is Godot, just fishing. Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors. We know that one. Isn't showing both against Twitch TOS or something? I don't know. I don't know if that's against TOS. I don't know, actually. Maybe if you're a partner, but I'm not a partner on YouTube or Twitch. I guess technically I'm a partner on YouTube, but I don't have like... I don't have my streams monetized currently. I don't stream often, but maybe. I hate all of these. Put that there. I wish I could do like a custom duration. Because it's Sunday. I guess we'll make it 24 hours. Because I would like to have this figured out before Tuesday. Because Tuesday is going to be the next stream, by the way. I'll allow multiple answers. Answer in thread. Doesn't Thor show both? He does. Yes, actually. No. Does he put... He doesn't put Twitch stream... Or he doesn't put chat on stream, does he? I don't think. Maybe he does. Is he live currently? He is. Let's take a look. I don't see Twitch stream anywhere. Or Twitch chat anywhere. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I do know that there are people that do it. Like, I believe Quellis does it. So... Let's not show who I'm following everywhere. Oh, I showed even more people. Whatever. Yeah, I think Quellis does Twitch and YouTube. I might ask how he does it. He does it in a cool way, I think. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and post this. Community polls. Here's the poll for the games I'll be working on during streams throughout September and October. More info on each the thread. And I'll make a thread, and I'll toss all of this shit in here. Where is my obsidian? I really hope this formatting works. Game 1. Holy shit, you guys are answering this quick. Game 2. And Game 3. Hopefully these are formatted correctly. We're gonna pray. Let's go. First try. Let me edit this just a little bit. Alright, what does this say? Googled it and it looks like that's the case. No combined chat on Twitch. What the fuck? What a weird... What? Wait, no combined chat. Do you think that means, like, you can't have the chats together on stream? But do you think I could have two different things where it shows my YouTube chat here and my Twitch chat here separately? I don't know. Because I think Hungrybox does that. I'm going to out myself as a Smash player. We're actually going to check that in a second. What's going on here? Holy shit. We have people joining. Let's see. Hungry Box. We're not gonna watch the whole video. I'm just curious about something. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so he does that. Up here. He actually has YouTube and Twitch chat separated. So they're not merged, they're just on the screen at the same time. I can look more into that, but I would like to have some way of Twitch chat knowing what's happening in YouTube chat. Okay, gotcha. And yeah, I might actually let Quellis know about that as well then, because I know Quellis and Code, I believe, use combined YouTube and Twitch chats, and that might end up causing problems for them, and I don't want them to have problems. But anyways, now that I've put out the poll, and now that I've spoken my piece on the game and the community game, reminder about the community game. If you are curious about the community game, we have this here, this channel, the Discord server game project. If you're interested, you can open up this form and you can submit your idea here. We have a bunch of people who are really interested in this. We have a couple of people who I would say are kind of leading this a little bit. So the first one is Akko. Akko is the one who made the poll. We have JW, who is, I'm sure, in here, right here. JW. And then Alice, aka Misarticulate Python. Maybe a couple more people. Yeah, so if you're interested in making a community game with everyone, art, coding, music, testing, accessibility, I made a poll in here that is closed, but this is kind of the things that we're kind of curious about. I didn't include writing here because I forgot. But yeah, if you are interested in contributing at all, it will be open to modification within reason. Like, you're not going to be able to push an update that changes everything to a bright red sprite and ruins the game for everyone. But it's kind of, you know, people showed interest in making a game together, and I think a lot of people could benefit from that. It could give you experience making a game, or if you're just interested in reading what's going on in the game, you can kind of see how like design happens. So once the game gets made, or once the poll gets closed, I think the plan is to do some sort of like maybe not elimination, but kind of like more discussion. Maybe put up a vote of like what kind of game the most people want. I believe right now the most common answer is like cozy game. Where is it? Let me look at the pinned messages. Yes. So it looks like the most popular answers are like a cozy game, top-down shooter, cozy game, blacksmith, which is kind of cozy-ish, Stardew Valley X Risk of Rain, a poly collector game like Pokemon or Digimon on N64. So it looks like it's not going to be super, like it's not going to be anything intense. So yeah. My beginner, I don't think that will help much. So I think the idea is like, even if you're not able to help, you know, you can look into it and see what other people are doing. You can, you know, download it and see if you can modify what's going on, because maybe you have some input. Maybe you download the project and you realize that there's a bug that's in it that you can fix, or, you know, whatever. There are definitely ways that you can contribute outside of, you know, doing a bunch of crazy code for it. Can I know what your thoughts on getting hacked thingy is? I'm assuming I missed a message. I did. By the way, under DevWorm's video about saving, I'm gonna pull that up while I'm reading that. There was a comment mentioning that if you don't make your game save properly, people might hack your personal information through the save files or something. I'm assuming it's one of these. I'm just gonna search for hack and hope that word shows up. Was that Firebelly down here? No, that looks like Firebelly's profile picture. So I think that the hack that we were talking about before was if you use resources. Does this use resources or does this use JSON? I think this used JSON from what I saw. No, okay, so this uses resources, which is bad. You don't want to do that. Is it this one? Does this use resources? Same thing? Yeah. So that was what we were talking about before. Roller Toaster was I don't know what video did I have. I had another video pulled up earlier that didn't use resource saver and resource loader. You don't want to use this. So resource saver is the one that can cause problems, that can cause arbitrary code execution, unless, again, if there is no way that people would pass files between each other, this is fine. I would avoid using the resource saver because it can cause arbitrary code execution. Like if someone passes you a save file and says, hey, here's the save file for this, it's got all of the weapons unlocked, and you load that save file and it uses a resource saver, this could cause arbitrary code execution. But if it's a JSON file, it doesn't. If it's like a text file, it doesn't. If it's a customly saved resource, like using something like what Alice made, then it doesn't cause issues. For a horror game, what are the most important elements? Do you think music and ambiance play a bigger part than the artwork? Yes. So for artwork, I would say, I'm assuming you're asking about art quality. I would say that the art quality doesn't matter nearly as much for horror games than for like art style. If you want to go for something a little bit stylized so that it all kind of is cohesive. The design of the characters. I think there are ways you can get away with it. I think there are so many things that you can get away with without having like a super high artistic like design. Yeah, I would say sound design, like what JW said. Sound design is much, much, much more important than art design in a horror game. Maybe in most games, but I would say that sound and like setting the mood of the game is a lot more important than what the game looks like afterwards. I mean, like, some of the most popular horror games out there are like really like traditionally ugly. Like Lethal Company is an ugly game. Like objectively, the graphics are not pretty, but they look good because they're all cohesive, because they kind of work and they set the mood. I know a lot of people go for more aesthetically pleasing games. Well, you wouldn't want aesthetically pleasing in horror games because then it's not a horror game. The visuals are part of the mood, yes, but like strictly what I'm talking about visuals wise is like quality of visuals in terms of like photorealism and like high effort and like what you would traditionally call good looking art. You can get away with like making what is considered traditionally ugly art if it all works together. If it all fits together and it all sets the mood, it doesn't matter the quality of it, it just matters like how cohesive it is, I would say. I mean, like Voices of the Void. Voices of the Void is an amazing game. And I'm gonna pull that up on itch really quickly. This is an amazing game. And it doesn't have like traditionally pretty graphics. Like it's very like blocky, but it's all cohesive. And like the things like lens flare, like he didn't, the creator didn't program that. That's just like the stock Unreal Engine lens flare. But because everything kind of works together, it doesn't really matter. Like this alone wouldn't really look like a blade of grass, but a bunch of these in like the water, it's like that's a blade of grass and this looks good. And there's nothing that's like super like out of place because it all kind of fits together. But anyways, I'm gonna look for someone to raid. Voices of the Void mentioned, dude, you have no idea how many hours I've put into Voices of the Void this last week. I picked up Voices of the Void off itch like Wednesday or Thursday night. I would be surprised if this game was on Steam. I would probably have like 20 plus hours in it, and I've been playing it for less than a week. That game is so good. Who is in? I'm not gonna raid with very many on Twitch. Does anyone know if I can raid on YouTube? Is that a thing? Because I kind of want to just like, because I don't want to just like end the stream and leave everyone. Like, I would love to just drop you guys off on someone that I recognize. Rating on YouTube is not a thing. Cool. That's really shitty. I know we talked about this on the Discord before, but I was hoping maybe someone in chat would know. Let me see. How do I add the Godot tag on Twitch? Godot. Anyone that I recognize. Well, that's me. I recognize me. None of the people that I regularly watch are online. However, I do recognize this guy from chat earlier. It's called a redirect on YouTube. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that more because I have no clue. How do I raid on Twitch? I don't know how to do this. Alright, we're looking this up. How to raid on Twitch. Oh, is it /raid? We're gonna find out. Thank you for the answer, Greedium. I have no idea. Raid. Oh yeah, there we go. Raid. I'm assuming I just need the username. We're gonna send you guys over to Rat Race Studio. Raid. Raid has been created. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that, because I have no idea. But yeah, I'm going to end the stream. I'm also going to paste the Twitch chat of this guy on YouTube. If you want to check him out, this is where we're going. And then I'm hitting raid now. Yeah, but Tuesday, I will be streaming again. Hopefully, we will have the answer to what game I'm making. Vote on the poll. Let me know. Include any comments in here if you want, what you'd be interested in seeing. But this is what I'll be making over September and October. But yeah, I will catch you guys later. You guys have a great one.